thank our panel as well.
my laws, my tax, my
controlling our borders. I also think that being part of the European Union
and financially catastrophic and ineffective European Union.
If I may, I'd like to invite John Boyle to get this morning's debate underway. John.
Good morning, everyone. I have to concede that 8 o'clock in the morning is not my favourite time. I don't usually get underway until a little bit later, so I had to get up about 5:40 to get my normal body rhythms going this morning. It's a bit like, I think my wife and my children equally share my ability not to get up. On the Sunday mornings, I call my haven time, and that is when I got up slightly about 9 o'clock and listen to Sunday love songs followed by Desert Island Discs and have a quietness. And I always have my newspaper delivered, and I guess one of the things that keeps us all in common, we read the Sunday Times. So the Sunday Times is delivered, and although even when I owned a football club, I never ever went to the back pages. I always picked up the Sunday Times magazine, went to the back, where there's a column called A Life in the Day Of. And the one thing over 30 years of reading it is that nobody ever in that plateau ever gets up past 6:30. And then they have blueberries and yogurt. And you go, my, these people. And we've got this sort of Boyle tradition. All the kids got up and they walk in, and I'm listening to Desert Island. It's about 11:30. They say, "What time was it, Dad?" And I go, 6:45. That is the time that the person in the life in the day of gets up at. So it's a bit about perception and reality, which I want to talk. So if the Sunday Times want to ask me to do a life in the day of, I'll be the first person ever to say, "What time do you get up at?" It depends on what I was doing the night before. For me, the decision to leave Europe falls into two very distinct categories. First of all, I am British. I'm a citizen of the UK, and I want to have control of my laws, my taxes, my finances, and my borders. Failure to control any of these core functions brings into sharp focus, are we a country in any meaningful sense? I do not believe that because I'm talking to a group of businessmen and businesswomen, we are all about figures. You won't find too many figures in my very short presentation. I am trying to address your heads, but also your hearts. So this is not somehow business people are some cohesion group of people who are only concerned with profit and money. I believe we have the same passions as everyone else in society, and therefore I will not be talking in numbers. I'm also a proud Scotsman. I lived in London for 25 years, and then I chose to come back here and live in Glasgow. And with my colleague Andrew Lapping, who's here today, we set up our business in Glasgow. Our businesses actually have more business in England. We have printing businesses, battery businesses, all in England. But we chose to be here. We chose to locate to Glasgow, so I'm a very proud Scotsman. My children went to Scottish schools, and two of my kids are one's at St Andrews and one's at Aberdeen University. I couldn't be more Scottish, but I am British and I want to be British. I was a director of Better Together campaign, and we fought and we won the referendum, although I have to say some people may dispute the consequences after it. While Scottish to the core, I actually believe that the British traditions and British heritage, which have served us very well over 500 years, and I think the country has done extremely well, ups and downs, being British, retaining our heritage, retaining our culture. I do not want to be European. Simple as that. I do not want to be European. And even if it did cost me and this country money to remain British, I would be happily pay whatever that amount was. However, I hope to demonstrate to you that the fact that Britain will be economically and financially better off leaving the existing bloated and financially catastrophic and ineffective European Union. One of the questions I would pose to those of you in the audience of an SNP or nationalistic persuasion, on what intellectual basis can you justify at the last referendum demanding that all government power come back from London to Scotland and to Edinburgh because those powers are better exercised locally and democracy is enhanced by having these things done locally? However, when it comes to the European debate, you propose that you export all those powers back to Brussels. There is simply no intellectual credibility in the suggestion from the SNP nationalist community that we want the powers back, now we're going to give them back to Brussels, who are unelected. If the philosophical certainty of what they were suggesting, they would be anti-Europe, because the same arguments they used about being anti-British are doubly effective, because at least Westminster is elected democratically, whereas everyone in this audience, even the most pro-European, knows that that Brussels is run by a coterie of self-interest, unelected officials, commissioners, or whatever they call. There are a number of people in this audience, and I've been speaking to a number of people in the last week or two, Scottish voters, who genuinely want Britain to exit the EU. But, this is a Scottish question, are really, really worried that if Scotland votes to remain in the EU, and I think the numbers are looking like that, to be in all honesty, but Britain, therefore England, votes to exit the EU, what we will have is another excuse for the Scottish nationalists to demand another referendum. And the trauma we all went through, the uncertainty we all went through, I'm sure my co-speakers will talk about uncertainty, but I'll hopefully deal with that in a moment, that it is probably better for you as a voter to think, actually, I'm better if we stay in, because I can't go through all that again. Now, what I have to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, is you have to vote with your heart. We have to stand up for our principles here, and we cannot be intimidated by the SNP threatening us, scaremongering us about if Britain exits the EU, we will have another referendum. I actually believe after the catastrophic financial consequences that this country would have suffered if we'd gone independent, I believe we would win, and win even more comfortably, another referendum. So please, if I might plead with you, put that to one side. I now come to the more business part of my last minute or two. My daughter recently went to London for her first job, and she's in the fashion industry. She's starting at the bottom. And she said to me, Dad, what area should I try and get into? She works for Bowden, and I said to her, be a buyer. Everyone in this room knows it is a much more stressful situation, a less stressful situation if you're buying goods rather than sell. Those of us that have to sell our services and sell our goods are increasingly under strain as we have to present and profile, and it's hard selling. Being a buyer is easy. My good friend Ian Grubina from Topshop loves it. He has all these fashion things. He's the buyer. So I think we would all agree that being a buyer is where you are in control. Now, the fundamental matter you must understand is that this country, the United Kingdom, has ran a trade deficit of substantial proportions for the last 35 years. They will talk about us being unable to reach trade deals. The fact of the matter is we buy in more than we sell. What country or group of countries is going to be difficult about a trade deal when they are the beneficiaries? Are the French likely to be tough on whisky exporters or cheddar cheese exporters when we eat more camembert and drink more wine than they do? If you just take the French wine industry, we consume more French wine than anyone else in the world. We're one of the few countries that drink a lot of wine and don't produce very much. Canada, Australia, Portugal, Italy, Germany, all pretty much drink their own wine. If the British changed their wine buying habits and moved to buy wines from Australia or New Zealand, a third of the French vineyards would have to shut down. Now, do you seriously think that the French trade negotiators are going to devastate their agriculture by being petty and putting up tariffs? Of course they're not. Britain is the 5th biggest economy in the world, and we will have absolutely no difficulty negotiating deals because we buy more than we sell. I suspect that Germany will be very keen to sell us BMWs and Mercedes. I suspect the French will be very happy to sell us their wine. I suspect the Italians will be very, very happy to sell us their fashion produce. This trade renegotiation is absolutely pathetic. Every one of you in this room knows that when you're buying something, you will get the better deal. So I want to conclude by saying, vote with your heart. If you want to be British, remain British. I'm not anti-European. My whole career was in taking people abroad, was in taking people on holidays, was flying people, in Air 2000, in Zoom. That's what I did. I am not a little Englander. I'm not a little Britander. My whole life has been about people coming together. But there are some fundamental things you've got to stop and say, this country is better running its own affairs. We are and have been and will continue to be a hothouse of innovation for many years. And not having the dead hand of Europe on our shoulder will make Britain and Scotland even better. Thank you for listening.
I'd like to thank our panel as well.
My laws, my tax,
Controlling our borders. I also think that being part of the European Union
and financially catastrophic and ineffective European Union.